All right, so today I'm going to talk about like where should you start if you want to get into stoicism. So, first off, I want to just like come humbly and say that by no means have I mastered stoicism. I'm not a stoic sage, which is the ideal of stoicism. This is what we're all trying to get to. And even the greats of stoicism, Zeno, and Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, these people themselves, even as great as they are, never reached the point of the Stoic sage, or this is very arguable. And so you have to give yourself patience and be kind and understanding that it's going to take a long time for you to get good at these things. But the more that you practice these things, the better that it's going to get. And so some people talk about how stoicism doesn't work for them, but and maybe it doesn't work for them. But before you say that it doesn't work for you, I think one of the things that you should do is you should really give it time and practice and really practice this over and over and over. But not just practice it over and over, but you should really study everything holistically, because if you just take certain quotes or parts, yes, it might help you out and stuff like that, but none of it is going to help you out nowhere near as much as the whole totality of what Stoicism is. And so, the first part of your journey into Stoicism, in my opinion, is to first study the craft, not necessarily to practice it right away. And you should try to like implement practicing it as soon as possible, but the first part is about the study. And so, if you're looking for something soft to get into Stoicism, I really recommend Ryan Holiday's books. This is like the softest way to get into it. My favorite books by him are The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, and Stillness is Key. His other books are really good too. I definitely recommend reading those other books too, but these were my favorites. And if you're going for like another tier, just a bit above that, there's two books that I think people should read. And that's one that's called The Guide to the Good Life. And then there's one called How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. And these are two really, really good books and like really cover a lot of it too. But to me, the last stage, the highest stage, is to go back to the actual works of the Stoics themselves, right? And I'm talking about specifically Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Yes, there's like Musonius Rufus, that's really important too, and Zeno, but those three that I mentioned are most important. So there's a couple different books that they have. Like, I obviously talk about this all the time. The complete works of Epictetus. I think that's where you should start on the highest tier, right? To get to the most rawest form of Stoicism. And then I think Marcus Aurelius, everybody needs to read the Book of Meditations. I think that people who are not even Stoics should read the Book of Meditations. It's just a really good book to read and, think about these things that he's talking about, even for somebody else. And then there's Seneca, right? And I think one of his most famous books is called Notes of the Stoic. And that's a good one too. I think it's definitely worth reading. But he has another book called the it's a big blue book. It's called Letter of Ethics, and this includes all of his letters instead of just the notes of a Stoic. That's just part of it, and it does hit some of the biggest ones, but that's really important too. I think that there's another one. I will talk about it further on this channel. I can't find it right at this moment, but it's on Happiness and Something Else by Seneca, and that one's an extremely powerful book too. I'll put that in the comments what that book is. And these are the most important books to review over Stoicism. And you need to read all of this stuff in its totality first off. And then once you have the knowledge, I think you should reread these things again, but at a much slower pace in trying to practice these things. And you have to be very patient and kind to yourself and understanding of yourself that you're not going to go from just being a regular person to being a Stoic sage overnight. Like, And a large part of what Stoicism is it's changing your value system. And I feel like in modern day or even in life, a lot of the times they teach us to develop these value systems that don't necessarily coincide with what Stoicism really brings you, which is peace, tranquility, contentment, and control over your emotions, being more of a logical and rational thinker and stuff like that. So you just have to give yourself time. And it's just like I've talked about in one of my other videos. In order to be a master of something, they came up with the idea that you have to put 10,000 hours into it. So I'm only a couple years into this journey, and by no means have I mastered these things. But don't let that discourage you just because you haven't mastered it, because the longer that you stick with it, the more rewarding it is. Another person once said that it doesn't matter how many books that you read, it's how many good books that you find and that you keep on rereading. And I think that that's a really powerful thing to venture into Stoicism too, is that these books were not meant to be read one time. They were meant to be studied. They were meant to be a part of your life. I think that they are meant to come back and revisit all the time. So that's my advice for a beginner in Stoicism. And, there's a bunch of different videos on YouTube that you could watch too. You can even check out my channel and stuff like that. But that's my best advice for people trying to get into Stoicism.